Hey everyone, I am here with Farita, our student support officer. And Farita, you had some questions for me. You had some jackpot questions for me about what's been going on in my life. Go ahead.
Yes, yes. I know you've been extremely busy with a lot of things, and one of the things that is big, and we're all waiting for it, is the book that you are currently writing.
Yeah.
So, most of us don't have that experience of writing book, and I just want to hear how are you? What it is, what's happening, how is the writing process going, why you started to write this book, what it is about, and etc. etc.
That's a
So
lot of questions. Let's start
let's
somewhere.
yeah, let's start. How are you now so far in the after you've written the book? How you feeling about it now?
So I'm currently on the third edit, and the third edit is the final edit before it goes. So how this is how I do it. I'm not saying this is how everybody should do this, but for me, the third edit is the final edit before I give it to my readers to. I have readers that I want to proofread it. A couple of highly qualified people, just so that it all makes sense. That it's not some kind of a downloaded um, stream of consciousness from me, but rather an actual uh, easy to follow story. Um, how I'm doing? I am. I'm exhausted. Um, um, I love writing. I think a lot of people love writing in our audience. I think a lot of people in our audience also would like to write a book, and I don't want this to put anybody off because it is a big commitment to write any kind of a course or a book in the personal development industry or field, but also because this is almost like my origin story. So this is the story of how I've learned what I've learned and how I've become this person and become this governing elder for the Simulov Academy of Human Integration. And so it's a lot of personal stuff that I'm not used to talking about. I am not, I'm supposed to put in 10 pictures into the book. And I'm looking at the pictures and I'm like, well, um, I don't want to share that stuff because it's personal. And so, and I know I don't have to share anything, but this book has been, I've had the publishing contract since 2017, so it's 5 years now. And and um and I've promised it, so I will deliver it, even if it's on a little bit of a stretched schedule, but you know. So I'm feeling good about what's in it. I'm feeling good about where we are with it, as in how far we've come. I'm so happy to have the team have my back as I'm writing the book. Our incredible audiences on Facebook and at the Simulov Academy, and YouTube. Everybody's super patient, and I'm just, it warms my heart, and I don't know what I've done to deserve all this this support, but it is. I feel like crying right now. That's how hard it is right now.
Yeah, I hear you with your exhaustion, that it must be physically and also emotionally very, very hard, because it's personal. It's not something that you take a story and put the words around the story. It's you are writing about, authentic you.
Yeah, and my perception of my life. You know, everybody who's involved in my life has their own perception of what my life looks like, and and I think that, and I think, or I think it's safe to say that everybody has a perception of who I am and what I'm about, and I think a lot of it is um, is true. But what I would also say is that I have a tendency to look for the best in situations, um, even when things can be a little bit hard. And I'm not one. I don't complain. I get on with it and keep going until I feel like I can't. As in, I don't wait to the umpteenth, before the camel's back is broken. I'm not like that. I have boundaries. I have good boundaries in place. But I also have a habit of not I just keep pulling myself up by the bootstraps rather than complain about what's going on. And I think that when the book comes out, a lot of people will find out just how challenging my life has been. Although, having said that, it's nothing compared to many other people's experiences. And that's the beauty. We're not looking to compare. But what I would say is that it might be a bit of a surprise, all the stuff that you don't know about.
And you said word boundaries. Now, I hear the protective part, and I completely so relating on being protective of the very personal experience, memories, feelings, thoughts.
Yeah.
And to be able to share them, if you're comfortable, what kind of boundary work have you done to have those abilities to share that personal life? And what kind of for people within work you have done throughout this process of writing?
Yeah. Great questions. I mean, the thing that keeps me on the straight and narrow is the first edit is I just put down anything and I say it in any way I feel like saying it. That every part of me gets to say what they want to say, and then the second edit is where it gets more, where I actually pull things together, make them cohesive. Say, do I want to put it in? And if I do I want to put it in that way? Because let's face it, like nobody really cares to read my diary. I don't think. I don't have enough hubris to think that anybody's really that interested in me as a person, to that extent where you'd be, fascinated reading through my innermost thoughts. I think the most important thing for me is that the messages that I want to put across, or the things that I want to share about myself, are presented in a way that actually makes sense to people, that people have a point of reference to what the heck I'm talking about. So it's so important for me to make sure that the first edit happens exactly how it always happens for everything that I write. And then the second edit is more thoughtful of, does this actually make sense to another person who doesn't have all that backstory about what's happened and how it happened and who, And also I want to be fair, because I believe that that everything that happens in my life, every traumatic experience that's happened in my life, there's a reason for it. I just don't know what it is until I know what it is. And that often comes in hindsight. So do I want to present a situation in a way that I'm going to that I don't yet know what the benefits of even a difficult situation is. So in that, I'm not interested in complaining. I'm interested in I'm a big fan and the spokesperson for finding out, why something happened and what you can do going forward to power yourself from the challenges that you experienced before. Because the more challenges we experience, the more strong we become if we go through the experiences and grow through them. But yeah, it's I make sure that every one of my 4 people within gets a say that is authentic to them, but that it makes sense to other people. If you've listened to previous interviews, or Farita, you and I have talked about this before, you may have heard me say that when I was writing the 4 people within Blue course, one of the toughest modules was the PTSD module, and in fact it is the same in the book here. When I started writing it, I went into full-blown PTSD again, which is surprising because I thought it was surprising at the time. It's not surprising now, but I thought that it wouldn't hit me quite like that. And it didn't, but it hit me on a whole different healing level. So I didn't just, when I was talking about the PTS in the book, it wasn't about, I was describing what was happening to me when I was writing the course or when I was recording the course. So I didn't get quite that level of activation, but it took me a couple of days. It took me a couple of days to really rest into the insights that came from those things, those occurrences that happened before. So it's been a psychologically quite demanding space to be in. And I don't know, I don't think I would have been able to do this without the 4 people within work, because I wouldn't have had a framework on which to really attend to my own needs if it wasn't for that. Does that make sense? Does that make sense / answer your question?
Very much so, Merja, very much. Also, when you talk about that, the experience that you did have PTSD after and again, so what kind of support were you looking and receiving, as well as now when you're writing the book? There must be so much things that you maybe anticipate beforehand that it's going to trigger in me some kind of emotions, because it did with my previous book and course. So what kind of support did you receive and seek, and how important it is and was?
Yeah. And if I can read a part of the book on that PTS, I think it'll actually describe it really well. But I do want to say that if you or your loved one, and this is a trigger warning on the book as well, that if you or your loved one is struggling with thoughts of, or acts of suicide, PTSD or CPTSD, what I've written here may activate your stress response. And if it does, please stop reading now and get help from local mental health care practitioner. And please remember that this is my story, not a reflection on you or your loved one or what you're going through. So just really, I want to be really clear. So if you're feeling sensitive right now, you can just put this recording down. I was sitting in the cupboard of the recording studio shaking. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew that it was not safe to come out. Before barricading into the cupboard, I blocked the doors, checked the windows, and switched off the lights. The door locking I understood. I don't know why I switched off the lights. It was late at night. It was already dark outside, and I just finished recording the last 4 people within course module for the day. If you've ever had to speak in front of a class or made recordings of what you've written, you know how challenging it can be to read your work out loud. On top of that, I was in double trouble. To the left of me was my challenges with dyslexia, and from the right, I could feel my PTSD flanking me. It was a long recording session. There were 13 pages to read, which might as well have been 30,000 word book or 300,000 word book for someone living with dyslexia. Even there, I read 30, even though it's 300,000. But I had psyched myself up for this session because it was no ordinary one. The topic of this last recording was PTSD. Throughout the recording, I was fumbling around with my reading and speaking, not because of my dyslexia. I couldn't breathe properly. The growing metallic smell of the inevitable post-traumatic trigger was thick in the air, as it always was when it was too late to turn back. I felt suffocated well before the trigger snapped. As I was having serious difficulty getting the words out of my mouth and into the voice file, I knew what was coming. With every word I spoke, the traumatic memories came back. With the realization of my family's mental unwellness in my 20s, I went to therapy. It helped me settle into the knowledge of my trauma, and I thought that by just understanding the trauma, I was done with it. Then over a decade later, I was triggered by significant life events to revisit my knowledge. It turns out that knowing about the trauma is not the same thing as being able to deal with it when it hits you. So there I was, in the cupboard, hiding. The tentacles of the darkness wrapped around my neck and they pulled me down, and they were pulling me down. I was back in that house being chased by men. In my mind, as clear as day, was the reality of hiding in between the boxes of potatoes waiting to be found and brutalized. My mind was repeating the event on a loop, and any time the threat was passing, my thoughts would jump back into waking up in the bed upstairs, hearing them talk about what they would do to me. The situation and the studio environment were the perfect storm. 1, because of the day of the recording, I was revisiting my trauma, even if just in my mind. 2, I had no one to help me because I often recorded alone to avoid distractions. 3, the rest of the building was dark. And 4, I heard unfamiliar noises. It makes complete sense that I have been triggered. Both my trauma and the day of the recording included the same ingredient, yet I felt powerless to do anything about it. Just like that, I was back to being 5-year-old child with no one protecting her. The fear felt like a stormy sea, and the darkness of the abuse kept pulling me underwater. Instinctually, I knew that if the cycle of the story kept playing out in my mind, I would lose myself, maybe forever. So that was the feeling on the day of the recording. And when you're in that space, you don't even think that anybody's coming to help because you're conditioned to think that nobody's coming to help. You're just being chased and all you can do is hide. So it didn't even occur to me to contact my partner, Peter, who's like 2 minutes down the road, literally. And it's not because the support wasn't there. It was because I didn't even think. I was living in a whole different reality. And writing this now, so fast forward, when did I record the 4 people within re-recording? Maybe 4 years ago. So fast forward to now. I knew that this was going to come. So I'd looked at what I'd done in the past and I made sure that I kept friends on speed dial, and you know, my support therapists and coaches and mentors. And I would do almost like a debrief at the end of the writing day to talk about what was going on, what was coming up during that day. So I preempted it by not waiting until I got triggered, but actually kept offloading the stuff I'd taken on during the day, the trauma, the post-traumatic responses that were coming as I was writing. So that was the difference. That was the biggest difference between the two. And Melissa Wallace, who's co-authoring this book with me, she's an editor and a writer. She is keeping me on the straight and narrow. So I've so many times asked her, especially around the PTSD episode, the chapter might as well have been an episode in some reality TV show. But that chapter, she gave me so much leeway, because that chapter took me weeks to write, weeks as in like three weeks or 4 weeks, something like that. But simultaneously kept asking, how is it going? How am I doing? What's happening with this? What's happening with that? So I've had the usual support system. I've had Lisa Wallace and also you guys, the team. So yourself and Virpi and Taheera to check in, to like Taheera and I would have had calls 2 or 3 times a week just to check in on that, because she knows her role as a strategic manager or strategic leader in the business. She knows how important it is that my head is right for the rest of the work that we do. So I can't thank you all enough for being there as I've been walking through the toughest parts of this book. Yeah.
It's good to hear that you do have support, and how vital it is when we're dealing with emotions and what have happened to us, and facing them again. We're putting ourselves in the situation where we're facing again, and how we're dealing with that.
Yeah. And really for me, what works is facing the things over and over again, but in a safe environment, not in a way that re-traumatizes me, but in a way that's actually connected and anchored into the fact that I'm no longer being chased by men, and I don't have to, you know, hide between the boxes of potatoes in the cellar and nobody's coming. That's no longer my reality. So I need to make sure that I'm balancing, when I'm taking a deeper dive into trauma like this, that I'm balancing it out with what's actually the reality of life.
And that is so important to distinct from what have happened and what is happening now. And thank you for bringing that up, because we do sometimes, well, quite often, what has happened, and it was so strong experience.
Yeah.
We kind of keep living in that.
Yeah.
Even when we don't have to.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up, that there is this difference, and that what will help us to move on from experience that we had and reality that we are living now.
Yeah.
Respecting what has happened to us, and validating the feelings that we had, and experience what we had then.
Yeah.
But also seeing what is it now.
Yeah.
How the reality looks now.
Yeah.
What people we have to support us to deal with the experience we used to have.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't have to be now what it used to be then.
And it often isn't, unless we keep recreating the same circumstances time and time again. I mean, you look back and it's no surprise that I ended up with a psychotic stalker who was, came into my house and attacked me there because of the experiences that I had before as a child. That's familiar. That's, of course that's going to happen, inverted commas, of course that's going to happen. Those things, if we keep re-experiencing the same things over and over again, we are the common denominator. And when we start changing and empowering ourselves and bringing ourselves up in our list of priorities, then we tend to start changing. The different circumstances start coming into our lives, and we don't keep playing the same video in our heads over and over again. It's much easier to move on from trauma when we realize that right now I'm safe. But
and that must be, sorry,
but as you said, you have to respect what happened to you before, because if you don't, it will come and bite you in the bum. It's that simple. It'll catch you at the most inopportune time when you need to be on. There's your PTS, and now off you go.
Yeah, because sometimes it does come, out of corner, and we are not prepared at all.
Yeah.
All what you said about being able to face the past and being able to be supported and be able to deal with everything that has happened. It must be rewarding, very healing, and the opportunity to learn a lot about ourselves.
Yeah.
What else joyful or rewarding moments did you have during this process of writing?
I love working with other people. I love collaborating, and that's been something that's been just incredible for me, to work on this book with Lisa Wallace, and just, she's just incredible in her supportive ways. I also do like ticking boxes, which means that this book has been a long time coming, so that's been really good. It's been good to get to this point, and I know we're on the final furlong now, and we'll get there. Just need to get there. And honestly, I'm just looking forward to hearing how the book will have helped people, when it comes out, because it's already helping people. It's already, the pieces I'm reading is already resonating with people, and they feel like somebody understands what they've been going through, or that they maybe pick a little golden nugget for themselves, and that helps them empower themselves. So that's, and I'm not even done writing the book completely yet. So that's been that's my fuel. That's what keeps me going. The service that anything that I create offers the world, when we're creating a more joyous and compassionate and effective world for all of us. So those, even though it's been hard, it is so cleansing, it is so healing, and it is so joyous to share this work with other people. So yeah.
Thank you for that. And very, very quickly, what is the title of the book and when it will be published?
Okay, so we're looking to submit the book by the end of October 2022, so it should be out February 2023, something along those lines, depending on how the publishers actually operate over Christmas and New Year's, and the holidays. So that's what we're looking at right now. So early next year, early 2023. I have not decided on the title, but the working title is called Safe Spaces. How I went from a scared little child to a thought leader, or leader in personal development and personal empowerment. And it's going to be something along those lines, but we don't know yet. So I'd love to hear feedback on that. And anybody have really good ideas for book titles, I'm always open. But look, say my life is all about safe spaces. So really don't know that it would be anything else than that. If we don't have those safe spaces, we can't do our development and healing work. We need to have that so that we can become all of who we are.
Thank you. Thank you, creating one in Sumilov Academy. Thank you.
Thank you, Farita.
And it was lovely to hear about your writing process, and looking forward to that book.
Thank you. Thanks for your questions today. Feels weird to talk about myself, but I guess I better get used to it. I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'd love to hear if you had a main takeaway, you know, everybody who's tuning in. We're going to jump off now, and we'll see you all soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.